Thank you very much, Chairman Williams and Ranking Member Velasquez, for holding today's hearing, and thank you to all the witnesses for lending your insight into the resurgence of America's manufacturing space. Minnesota's 8th Congressional District lives and breathes manufacturing, from the iron ore on the Iron Range that feeds our steel mills to the small shops and fabricators in Duluth, Hibbing, Brainerd, Forest Lake, and across northern Minnesota. Manufacturing is our neighbors' livelihoods. When production moves overseas, it's a lost paycheck, a shrinking tax base, and one more young person who decides there's no future for them in the trades back home. Nationwide, we're reminded that manufacturing is overwhelmingly a small business story. As Mr. Crane notes, 93% of manufacturers have fewer than 100 employees and 75% have fewer than 20. These are the kind of employers we're talking about today, family-owned shops and small firms that are innovative but are also the most sensitive to tax hikes, regulatory costs, and permitting delays. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act gave us a permanent pro-growth tax code with tools like immediate expensing and pass-through deduction and higher estate tax exemption so family manufacturers can keep investing, hiring, and passing their business on to that next generation. Mr. Crane, for these small businesses, what are the top 1 or 2 policy changes beyond the tax code that will help them turn that tax certainty into actual investment in new equipment and jobs on the ground?
Thank you for that question, Congressman. I would turn your attention to permitting reform. As you indicated, the tax bill has a number of incentives for manufacturing investment, but if you can't get the permit to get that investment off the ground, then the tax bill hasn't had the maximum pro-growth effect that we would have wanted it to, right? And so with respect to permitting reform, if we can reduce the timelines for permitting review and approval, then that gives manufacturers more certainty to invest in these long-term projects. And if we can reduce the uncertainty associated with never-ending litigation on the back end through judicial reform, both of those things would improve the permitting process here in the U.S. Those are both governed by the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. There's actually a bill, funnily enough, being marked up today at the Natural Resources Committee called the SPEED Act to do exactly that. So it's thrilling to see that we have momentum in the direction of permitting reform to build on the success of tax reform.
Thank you, Mr. Crane, for mentioning the SPEED Act. I just left the Natural Resources Committee in support of that, and that is going to pass in a bipartisan fashion. I really appreciate you bringing that up because permitting reform is a high priority for all industries. Thank you. We've talked about the conditions small manufacturers are facing here at home. I want to zoom out to the decision point where companies choose whether to keep chasing the lowest offshore price or bring production back to the United States. Mr. Moser, your testimony shows that reshoring and foreign direct investments have grown from just a trickle to hundreds of thousands of announced jobs a year, with roughly half of those in the small supplier community. From your experience, what are the main reasons companies decide to move production back to the United States, and what more can we in Congress do to push large OEMs to deliberately bring more of their supply chain back to the small U.S. manufacturers in places like my hometown and my district, northern Minnesota?
Well, the main reasons they came back, they say, are first having manufacturing near engineering, so the small manufacturer can work with the big company and communicate, work together, partner. The second was duty and freight, and third was geopolitical risk, the risk of something happening over Taiwan and being cut off for 5 years or something from your supply chains. So we came out with a geopolitical risk map that shows the probability of decoupling with each country so the companies can calculate the risk of not reshoring and justify somewhat higher prices here. In terms of actions that you can take, one of the things in terms of the tariffs is to firm up the tariffs, especially for the big companies. They're thinking about investing $1 billion and taking 3 years to build the factory and 6 months to hire people. And if the tariffs could go away halfway through that process, the guy who decided to do it gets fired. Okay, so we need to firm the tariffs up, make them solid, make them such that they're going to last at least through this administration, preferably the next, so the companies will believe and they will act.
Yeah. You know, you talk about tariffs, the 232 steel tariffs that both President Trump in his first administration and then President Biden, they kept the 232 steel tariffs on because we know the Belt and Road Initiative of the Chinese Communist Party is to destroy our steel making and our mining industries here in the United States of America. We can't do that. We need certainty. We can lead the world. So with that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Gentlemen.